sometimes imperfection is a positive thing. Like people don't want to see all the time like super produced, beautiful content. It's more relatable and more fun to see when it's a little bit like stripped back and a little bit more personal.
You're listening to Customer Growth Sessions, presented by Intergrowth, where we talk through strategies to help up-and-coming e-commerce businesses bring in more customers. I'm your host, Pat Ahern. Let's jump in. All right, listeners, welcome back to the latest episode of Customer Growth Sessions. Today, I'm thrilled to have on Kelly Donohue, the marketing director over at Viv for Your V. Kelly, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
I can't wait to have you on today. Can you start out with an overview? What is Viv for Your V?
Yeah, so Viv is an earth-friendly period care brand. So we create all period products, tampons, pads, cups, discs that are all better for the environment and better for your body. So everything is completely toxin-free, use very innovative materials, and make everything a little bit more beginner-friendly, a little bit more approachable than other products out there.
For simplicity, I'm going to say you've been involved with the company since like more or less the very beginning. I think it was 2020 you mentioned that you joined the team. Tell us a little more. How did you get started on the team and what are you doing today?
Yeah, so my beginnings at Viv, we fully launched in 2021. I joined a little bit before that. So I got connected to Katie, our founder and CEO, just like through a mutual friend. We were both living in the Boston area, and the Boston startup scene is very tight-knit. So I feel like everybody kind of meets everybody else. So I met her like way back when we were both still in college, just through a mutual friend. And I had been like following along her early stage journey of starting Viv, and at some point just reached out to her and said, I love the mission and what you're building, and I like see the future, like the vision coming true, and I'd love to be involved in any way. So I just kind of came on the team at the very beginning with all hands on deck, like how can I help out? And it's just grown from there. So at this point, I lead all of our marketing and design and content and branding and everything in that sphere.
Amazing. And brand is, I think, maybe the topic I'm most excited to pick your brain on. And I want to step back and give a shout out to Megan over at Funk It Wellness because she initially connected us. And I'm going to share a statement very similar to what I shared with Megan when she first came on, which is when I look at the Viv website, the first thought that went through my mind is, oh, this is obviously a $100 million brand. Now, you and I have talked. I get the sense you're not quite at that stage yet, maybe a little bit below 100 million annual revenue. But I want to start out by asking you, how is it that you've gone about building like this perception of being what I imagine is significantly larger than the business actually is?
Yeah, that's very nice of you to say. That's like the goal, I guess. Yeah, I think I come at everything from a very design mindset, very branding mindset. And I think there, especially when it comes to something like period care, there's an element of trust that has to happen. But there's also this like new wave, new generation that we wanted to bring to this space. So finding the balance between like making sure everything is very clear and transparent and trustworthy and bringing some fun to the space. So everything is very brand minded when it comes to our website, our social media, to build that recognizability and build that like stickiness of the brand while also having this like really clear, authentic brand voice. So when I have been like crafting our content strategy, our branding strategy, I come at it from what would I like to have seen when I was getting my period for the first time, or even like in college when I'm trying to figure out what period products I want to use. Like if I'm looking for better options, what do I wish was out there? And what it really comes down to is a really authentic, like friend voice. Doesn't have to be this sterile big business. It can be like someone you really trust. We always say that Viv is like the cool big sister. So what would she do if she was running this period care brand? What would her aesthetic look like? What clothing would she wear? What advice would she give? And so having like that persona in mind, which is also like her name is Viv. That's like why the name is Viv. It's this person that you have in your mind, really coming at it from that mindset. Like we're creating the brand that we wish existed from a really, really authentic point of view that's also fun and approachable and a lot cooler than all the options that have been on shelf so far.
It's funny you say that. And you and I were chatting before this that when I think of, I would say, any sort of health related products, there's a certain packaging feel that I expect I'm going to see. I would describe it as like the almost like the toothpaste, generally like kind of sterile, like very white feel. Viv is totally different. So, to your point about the visualization side of that, how did you go about actually designing the packaging to fall in line with the brand and ultimately have it be so radically different than everything else that's probably sitting on the shelf next to it?
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's funny because there are in period care just a few major players that have very similar design styles when it comes to packaging. And it is this very like medical, sterile feel. And there are legal requirements for packaging in period care because they are like FDA regulated products. So, in a certain sense, there are rules that you need to follow. But I think one of the benefits of being a small startup is that like we don't have to just follow the design trends of the past. We can take the rules that are actually legally required and then have some fun with it and really like push those boundaries of what people expect. So at the very, very beginning of Viv, like, oh my gosh, pre-launch, we worked with an incredible freelancer to get our initial packaging. And then from there, I've just been iterating on that, making it more retail ready, taking learnings from our very initial, like, we started out going to like farmers markets and getting feedback from customers and like talking to people and just getting as much feedback as possible on packaging, what stands out, what can we add, but really making sure we're not just playing by the rules of what these bigger brands have been doing in the past, because it is a benefit to stand out and it is a benefit to look on shelf and say, oh, that doesn't look like the rest of them. That looks more fun, more approachable, more enticing, or it's giving information that the other ones might not, or like conveying an emotion that the other packaging might not. That is playing to our benefit. So that's how I approach it. Definitely like really understanding the Viv branding and making that come to life on shelf. So even if you've never seen like our social media or our website or anything, you can understand what our brand is all about just by looking at it on shelf.
Amazing. And you touched on the idea of product feedback, packaging feedback. The sense I get is that is a really important thing to the brand, is talking to customers or potential customers. Talk to me about that from a more granular perspective. How do you actually go about doing that? Is it as straightforward as you'd go to a farmer's market and you'd print out 5 different designs, go up to random people and say, hey, which of these do you like the best? Or what did that look like?
Yeah. Feedback has been like the number one driver of, I would say, like every decision in our business. And I think it really comes down to, like I was saying, our goal is to be this really authentic, personable, like best friend, older sister figure. So it's funny, definitely not printing out options and asking. I think it's a little bit more personal than that, especially because we're period care. When we go to trade shows, we're like even walking through aisles at retailers where we're on shelf and talking to people. It really starts out with conversations about periods. And a lot of people like don't talk about their period very often. So when they have an opportunity to talk with people who literally live and breathe periods all day, every day, we get a lot of really interesting stories and personal anecdotes. And just people are excited to talk about their period because it's not something that's very openly discussed. So it really comes down to just hearing everybody's personal experiences. And a story that we always like to talk about at Viv is how we created our menstrual cup, because no one on the Viv team had ever used a cup before. I think they're very intimidating in general. If you've never used one, it's just like not something that you start out using like a pad or a tampon. It's just a little bit more advanced. So none of us had ever used a cup, but it is the most sustainable option out there when it comes to period care. And some of the very early feedback that we were getting when we were doing things like going to markets and talking to people was, if our goal is sustainability, we should really look into cups. So our mindset was, okay, all of us are honestly kind of afraid of them. So how can we use that feedback from ourselves and from what we're hearing from everyone else and create an option that's more beginner friendly, that's going to be more approachable for people like us. So really crafting in product design and the way we talk about our products. And so we launched our cup. It has a ring stem at the bottom that makes removal so much easier, because we found just from talking to people, reaching out to our very early like email lists and social media followers and saying like, what's the number one thing that you're afraid of when it comes to cups? And it's always getting it stuck or the removal process. So we created this ring stem that makes it so much easier. We started talking about it on social media a lot, and that the feedback on social media is incredible. There's just so much opportunity on there to have really direct one-on-one conversations. So like in the early stages when we're talking to people one-on-one in person, we get that times 100,000 in our TikTok comments. So it's really just an opportunity for like roundtable discussions on the internet. But we found that a lot of people were using our cup as their first ever menstrual cup and having questions about how to clean it, how to insert it, like what do you do to store it in between months? There's so many questions because people are beginners to this, just like we were. So we actually ended up creating a starter kit that has a gel wash and a storage pouch and a full like beginner's book that you can read through and watch videos online. It's like all in this one kit that was directly out of our TikTok comments. So we would like take note of all of the any sort of feedback, negative feedback, positive feedback, just like tips or like things that people were looking for. We have a Slack channel where we put feedback and like we screenshot comments and just have like threads and threads of product feedback and suggestions. And whenever we go into product development conversations, we really bring those into account. And so our cup starter kit actually has become, I think, our best seller at this point. And that's just amazing to see because it was directly from our TikTok comments. There's just so much power in that.
Wow. And I hope that listeners rewind a minute and a half, 2 minutes, and listen to that part all over again, because there was so much gold in particular with what you shared about the product feedback that you get from customers, using it to inform product development and even future products. If I'm understanding correctly, it sounds like a huge part of product development comes from looking at the content you're putting out on social. I know you mentioned TikTok as just one tangible example.
Yeah.
And starting to think about, hey, are there product opportunities in here based on what people are sharing for feedback? I'm curious, is there like a definitive number where you say, hey, if we get, making up a number, but we get 5 people that share the exact same piece of feedback, that jumps to inventory slot number 1 that we're going to look into creating in the next 12 months? Or how do you go about thinking about assessing that like very qualitative feedback and how to prioritize new products?
Yeah, it's funny. There's definitely not like a number of comments. I will say also, we get feedback from so many different places. So it is the TikTok comments. It's also what's in the news. There's been a lot of news about period care in the last couple of years, which is great because people are learning so much more. But a lot of it, unfortunately, is really scary news about like horrible ingredients in most tampons, which is the problem that we're trying to solve. So overall, it's great for our mission because we are able to provide those better options. But seeing what's in the news, we get a lot of feedback from retailers. So when we're going into pitches or just conversations with new retailers, hearing what they are looking for to add to their sets, that's really, really valuable information because a lot of these retailers are setting the trends for the industry as a whole. So for us, I keep talking about our cup, but it is so interesting. Like menstrual cups really are gaining popularity right now. 10 years ago, there maybe were a couple on shelf at some retailers, but recently that's just been growing so much. So hearing that and being able to know that's where the trends are going in retail is really just really valuable for us to know when it comes to product development. So I will say there's not like a set number of feedback. It really is. We're so dialed into the space on so many different channels that we're hearing everything about periods from all directions. And it's funny, our team, when we enter like product development conversations, usually we're all individually thinking like the same things because we're all seeing the same trends. We're all dialed into our comments. We're all seeing the news headlines. So we go in thinking that we're all going to have these new crazy ideas. And we're usually all thinking the same thing, which is good because it means that we're really all on the same page. And it's become a trend that our next product, it just like falls out of all of our mouths and it just makes sense. And when something like that happens, we know that's going to be the way to go. When all of us are thinking it individually, we're all like ready to go, ready to launch it. We also are crazy in our product development process and we launch products like so quickly, which is wild. But it's usually because it just makes so much sense. We have like overwhelming feedback. That's what people are looking for. So we just like go full steam ahead.
That's amazing. As a follow-up in there, one of the things you shared that really surprises me in a very positive way is that people are engaging with your content. They're sharing feedback about product frustrations, things they hope that you'll build in the future. One of my assumptions going into this was that getting customers to talk and even talking directly to customers would oftentimes be challenging, strictly because of the fact that period care is a subject that not a lot of people feel comfortable talking about. I'm curious, is that a challenge that you ever encountered, finding it challenging, let's say at a farmer's market, to go up to a customer and get them to speak openly? Or also on top of that, are there certain subjects, let's say within like women's health or period care specifically, that you find yourself having to just tiptoe around a little bit more delicately? How do you think about that?
Yeah. Yeah. Talking about periods is a very personal experience for everyone. People have very varying levels of comfort talking about them. So it is always like especially in person conversations, just gauging what the other person is feeling, how open they are, and really tailoring conversations around that. We definitely do. Like recently, we've been doing demos in Whole Foods. We launched in Whole Foods earlier this year, and we've been setting up a table. Like usually it's a snack or something that people are passing out where they're talking about menstrual cups. And that has been so interesting because some people literally run away and look horrified, and other people are so excited at the opportunity to talk to someone about periods. Because what I've found is that a lot of people are looking for a space where they can talk about things like women's health, but they're just like not normalized. So we're creating a space where people can come to us and have conversations that they've been like looking for someone to have a conversation with. And it's been really just like inspiring to be in a place like the grocery store and hear someone's really valuable experience, whether it's something about their period that they just like want someone to relate to about. They tell us like the crazy stories and we're just open to hearing everything, or hearing about their experience with a certain product or what they wish was different in the products that they were using. It's really valuable. I will say the internet has created so much more of an open space for people to feel comfortable talking about things. I think there's like positives and negatives about the anonymity of social media, especially TikTok, and like people can really hide behind a screen. And in something like talking about periods, that can create a space where people are open to talking about them more when they might not be in person. And for our content in general, we do a lot of really beginner period education. So some of our most popular videos are like how to insert a tampon for the first time, or even like what to do when you get your period for the first time, like step by step, here's advice. And a lot of our comments are either from young people getting their periods for the first time saying like, oh my gosh, I had no one to talk to about this. This is so helpful. Thank you for posting this, which that's just great to know that we're making a difference in people's lives. And when we talk about our product specifically, people feel open to giving their honest feedback because they are more anonymous than they would be in real life. So, and I think that's valuable. I think the negative and the positive feedback about our products is really, really valuable. Like I was saying, we like craft all of our products based on that, but it's been great to see the power of social media and how it really opens up people to talking about these quote unquote taboo topics.
Tell me if this sounds like you. You've started scaling the business through PPC channels like Facebook, but now it eats up 80% of your marketing budget, and ad costs continue to rise, pushing your margins down more and more every month. PPC is great for scaling your business in the early stages. The issue is PPC is like a faucet. As soon as you stop spending money, the sales instantly go away. So rather than paying per customer, we work with brands to build a steady stream of new customers through SEO. those customers continue to flow for years after brands stop working with us. Interested in hearing more? Reach out to us directly at intergrowth.com/CGS to book a complimentary strategy session with our team. And to your point, it's so incredible hearing that you have this subject matter that used to be considered, or it still probably is to some degree, considered taboo. And now there is this space, A, created by you, and B, created by with the help of social media, where people can get this information and they can talk about this information in a space that they feel more comfortable, whether it be anonymously through an anonymous, let's say like Reddit handle or TikTok account, or similarly can share their identity and talk a little more openly about it. But either way, that's an incredible thing.
Yeah, it's been great. We even, like, some of my favorite comments are from like single dads who have daughters saying like, this, I had no idea how to talk to my daughter about this. She's going to get her period soon and I had no idea what to do. And like they use our videos as resources just to like teach their daughters, which is incredible. If we can do that for one person, I'm like, we're making a difference. That's amazing. And I'm sure those dads are not like going to their other dad friends and talking about this, or I hope they are. And like in the future, I hope they can, but it's not as normalized. So being able to have a space for like anyone who needs this sort of education, it's been like incredible to see.
I was going to say, probably not too many of those dads are sharing that while they watch the Patriots football game on Sundays, but
yeah, but,
maybe they share it in like a chat message afterwards.
Yeah, but it can start online. It can start behind the screen. And then eventually, hopefully, things are normalized enough that anyone feels comfortable. Like that's the goal down the line. But it's like planting the seeds here on the internet where everyone can feel a little bit comfortable.
Absolutely. So jumping back to some of the brand discussions from the very beginning about that $100 million brand feel, trust was a really big element that you talked about. And so much of what you've shared for, call it the past 10 minutes, 15 minutes, has been all about those trust factors, those educational factors. I'm curious if there are like strategic elements that you've rolled out on the website that were designed to really accommodate that trust factor as well.
Yeah, definitely. One of our main brand pillars at Viv is transparency and just providing as much information as possible, especially when it comes to period care. I don't know if you're familiar or if listeners are familiar, but last summer a study came out finding lead and arsenic in most of the tampons on shelf, which was really scary. Definitely, like a lot of people have been using the same tampon since they were 13 and they just had no idea that they were exposing themselves to all these crazy chemicals, which is the problem that we were solving when we created Viv. So we have extensive testing and proof that our products are safe. And a lot of these legacy brands just don't provide that information, first of all, because they don't have it, because their products aren't the quality that ours are. But also there's this air of like not putting everything out into the open. So for us, we were like, why would we not put all this information as clearly visible as possible to build that trust? But also like, we're so proud of the products that we've created. We should be shouting from the rooftops. Like all of our products go through extensive testing to make sure there's no lead, to make sure they're completely safe when in contact with the human body. And like, these are things that the period care of the past hasn't even been tested for, which is crazy. Like all these things that it should be happening, testing should be happening. Obviously, period care should be safe, but unfortunately, that's just not a given up until this point. And now people are looking for those options. So for us, being able to show as clearly as possible all of the proof points of the marketing claims that we make. And sure, you can say like toxin free, but what does that actually mean? We're really here to show you exactly what that means. And even like let you know what questions you should be asking, because you see a headline like there's lead in your tampons and you're like, oh my gosh, that's horrible. What do I do? Like what testing, what like certifications should I be looking for when I'm trying to pick a tampon? Like, what does this mean for me, like going into the grocery store? And we're here to not only like have the products that you can trust, but also let you know exactly why you should trust ours and what you should be looking for, just because it's pushing the whole industry forward. Like we want to set a precedent for every other brand out there and hopefully like influence these larger brands as well. Like people want better and they deserve better. And we're like, sure, not this like $100 million brand yet, but if we're doing this, then everyone else should be able to do this too.
And to your point, I love seeing that in the industry that it sounds like with many of these legacy brands, there's just not as much transparency about what goes into their products. And to take the exact inverse approach and say, we're going to be really transparent about how we make our products, all the testing that we do for it, and we're going to share all that information. It's a brilliant strategy.
Yeah, it's been great. And it works out for sales and for trust and everything. Like, I'm so brand and marketing minded, but it really pays off and you see the results in our sales and in retail. Buyers are just so much more willing to have conversations when you're showing proof of product like this. So it really pays off like across the board. I think there's just such value in like having really strong brand values and following through on them like that.
And so I want to ask what is probably going to be a more remedial question. So I hope listeners don't mind this, but I'm a novice when it comes to brands, so I hope that's okay. For me, I think of brand as having so many different components. I think of everything you shared there. I also think of the very like visual side of branding, which I simplify for my own understanding too. Like, what are the color schemes that you choose? And then what are the like different typefaces that you choose to work with? Can you talk me through Viv's choices there for the colors and the actual fonts that you're using on a daily basis?
Yeah, yeah. Well, this is like my bread and butter because I'm a designer by trade. That's like my background. And I think it comes through with Viv. We're very like, I guess, aesthetic and like colors are actually a huge part of our branding. And it's interesting when you like walk down the period care aisle, you'll see trends in colors. Everything is blue, which is very interesting. And there is like psychology behind the color choices that brands use. But for us, thinking about our brand ethos and thinking about being that relatable, like best friend, big sister figure, it actually drives the visual design as well. So our colors are very green, yellow, pink, and we're just bright and fun and colorful. And on our social media, like if you look at our Instagram or our website or anywhere, that really comes through. Like everything we do is so color coordinated and branded, and it has this like fun Gen Z aesthetic to it. And that it creates a different I think it's a different approach to branding than a lot of these other like health focused brands because now like just anecdotally for me, when someone sees the colors pink and green, they'll like take a picture of something and send it to me and say like this is so Viv. It's like not related to periods at all, but it's like those colors that people recognize as our branding, which is really interesting. Like that's the goal, I think, when you're a visual brand designer is that you're not just creating like packaging or like a social media post. You're creating this like brand universe so that people can recognize your brand in all places or they're part of the universe. So they like see it everywhere. So that is like the goal that I approach things with that goal of like, sure, like making everything very coordinated and aesthetic, but with the end point being we're like creating a world and everybody in this world like is first of all on board like using our products but also like believes in our mission and takes on this like Viv ethos of being like kind and approachable and fun and like a cool big sister that like everyone wants to be friends with. I think it's a great world to be a part of, so we're like creating it for everyone to get involved with, which I guess is again more like overall, but it also like is tangible in the design that we're creating. So yeah, I think with actual design elements, we use a lot of like fun fonts and like aren't too strict with our brand guidelines because we want to make sure that we're staying relevant and like design trends change so quickly and being a startup and having a small team means that we can be really fast and flexible. So not like taking things too seriously when it comes to design. Like we don't need to put our logo on every single Instagram post. We can like create the vibe of Viv and people will know it's from us. Or like we wear every time the Viv team is together, we're always wearing Viv colors. And like it's all very intentional. We have these like fun design elements that we just use everywhere to kind of push the boundaries of like brand design, I would say.
So I want to go in a totally different direction, but one of the things that really stood out to me when you and I first met is whether it be creating designs for social, whether it be like editing audio and video, whether it's written content for the site or for social channels, you are really the person doing all of this for Viv. And I mean, those are like 4 full-time jobs all grouped into one. So talk to me about the task management, project management side of things. How do you manage to squeeze all that into your day? Are there project management tactics that you find really effective for balancing such a large workload?
Yeah, definitely. Organization is like everything. I have my systems in place. I use Notion to plan like everything in my entire life. So having systems down just for planning your days and your weeks, I think has been really important. I view like having, I guess, so much responsibility over content production really as a superpower because I am able to like move so quickly. So I have a lot of structure, but I also like to keep things flexible and open. So having like priorities set for what needs to get done every day, every week, and I always like end of week plan my beginning of the next week so I know I can like log off and take a break. That's also very important, having weekends and like having the balance when things get like really busy. But I always plan my next week on Friday. So I know exactly what I'm going into on Monday and I have my priorities set for like, I have my daily to-do list, my weekly and my monthly, and I go by priority and like make sure that everything that needs to get done gets done, but also having the flexibility, especially when it comes to content and how fast things move and how fast the news moves. Like this week, another headline about pads just came out. So my original content plan was to focus on our cups and discs this week, but pads are trending. I'm like completely shifting and focusing on pads this week. So like being the single person that's doing all of this allows me to do those sort of things. When if there is like many, many levels of approvals and ideation and like so many different touch points on the content, things just move slower. So I do view it as a superpower that I like am able to do all these things, but it takes a lot of like strict organization and systems to make it all happen. And also, I think I'm a perfectionist and it's been good for me to learn that not everything has to be perfect. And especially when it comes to social media and content, sometimes imperfection is a positive thing. Like people don't want to see all the time like super produced, beautiful content. It's more relatable and more fun to see when it's a little bit like stripped back and a little bit more personal. So that also like ties into our brand ethos as well, which is it like works out really well that like we're creating this like approachable figure. So just like filming content in my bedroom is actually really great for our brand. And that's like how I end up doing a lot of it is like being that like person talking to the screen, that like big sister figure. It's like better for our content strategy if it is a little bit simpler and a little bit more just like quick one-off record this video, which is not the case for all brands, but it does work out really well for us.
People ask me all the time, should I be using ChatGPT to create content for my site? So here's the thing. AI is great at quickly spitting out blog content. It's also great at pissing off your following. If you've spent years building your brand and follower base, why would you risk that all with AI-generated content? At Intergrowth, we work with companies that see their brand as an asset to get more customers through human-crafted articles that your customers look for online. We master your brand voice and work with your team to write the best articles on the internet that bring you customers on autopilot from search engines like Google. Interested in hearing more? Reach out to us at intergrowth.com/CGS to book a complimentary strategy session with our team. Oh, definitely. And I feel the exact same way, specifically on, call it like the polished element of content creation. And I see that a lot for our own brand. If we're running meta ads, one of the big shockers that I've found is I've talked to so many people who have said like, hey, best way you can create a video for meta ads is hold up your iPhone, take a selfie video, record yourself talking for 30 seconds, do it like 3 takes max, and just work with the best of those 3 takes. That's all you need.
Yeah.
And I've tested it out, and every single time we see the best performance from those really shoddy, like 30-second video ads. I'm going to probably record another 2 or 3 after this podcast. It'll take 15 minutes, and then I'll have everything good to go for the next 2 weeks.
Oh my
I
gosh.
think a lot of brands are... Oh, sorry, go ahead.
that always happens with TikTok specifically. I'll be like, oh my gosh, like I don't know what to post today. Let me just like edit together something really quickly and I'll post it and then like put my phone down and not look at it. And those are the ones that end up doing so well. Like I didn't even think about the strategy behind that post. I just like wanted to get something out. And of course, like that's the thing that ends up doing the best.
Oh, exactly. Within that, I'm really curious, how do you think about like scheduling posting? And what I mean by that, because that was like the worst question I think I've ever asked in terms of vagueness. But in theory, you could sit down, say on November 1st, and you could say, hey, I'm going to plan out every single post for the month of November. But based on what you were saying before, you lose a lot of that flexibility to jump on trends. Similarly, if you're sitting down and saying maybe in the moment, like, hey, every single day I'm going to post at this exact time, that can eat into your schedule. And that maybe isn't the most efficient way to approach it. So, how do you balance that? Do you have a general like posting schedule that works really well for you?
Yeah, it's definitely different per channel. I like to set goals for like quantity of posts first and set like realistic. I would say if I'm giving advice, I'd say set realistic goals for how much content you can actually produce. Sure, some people will say you have to post like 3 times a day in order to do well. That is just not the case, first of all. But also like that is setting a goal that's so unrealistic for most people, especially like with a starting like an early stage brand, you don't have time in the day to just be producing content to post 3 times a day. It's exhausting and you like run out of ideas after a couple days. So I think setting realistic goals to be consistent is the best way to go. So for us, like I like to post at least once a day on TikTok and I've like built up to the strategy that we have now. It hasn't always been the same, but setting a goal to post once a day on TikTok, making sure I have like videos planned with room for flexibility is important. So like I have a lot of videos in drafts that I'm planning on posting, but like if an idea comes up or a trend comes up and you just want to film it and post it, like do it. That's like the number one most important thing. But I think it's always a nice like backup to have a lot of great videos already set in drafts that you can just post at any time to like make sure you're hitting those goals for posting quantity. Instagram, I definitely plan out a little bit more than TikTok just because like our audiences are different. I think it's very important to have different strategies on different channels and like know where you scale back or scale up based on your engagement and what audiences you're trying to hit or reach on each channel. So Instagram, I definitely plan out a little more. I have a full like content calendar, but I like to leave blank spaces in those content calendars for like whatever's going on and make sure you're hitting something that's super relevant. Because if you are planning like end of month content on the first of the month, we don't even know what the world's going to look like at the end of the month. Like at this point, especially like everything changes so quickly that you don't want to have like stale old content by the time it's actually being posted. You want to feel like good and excited about it and that it's relevant and like relevant to your business, relevant to the trends on social media when you're posting it. I definitely leave a lot of spaces. It means you kind of always have to be creating content and producing and like it's never just like make everything for the month in one day and then just like sit back for the rest of the month. But if you are like really actively involved in it every week, it's going to pay off because you're going to have more relevant, more exciting content.
And with the posting cadence, I fully agree with you. I've gone through phases where I've said, oh, I'm going to try and post 3 times a day on every single channel. And for me personally, it's fallen off every time. And now my goal is, hey, every single weekday, we're putting out something on LinkedIn. And, maybe by the time this goes live, maybe we're doing twice a day, but I suspect not. We're doing seemingly okay with one LinkedIn post a day. I'd love to scale it up more, but that's a big time commitment and I haven't made the time for it yet. For listeners that are, let's say they're sitting down and they're saying, all right, Kelly, you've sold me. I need to start posting on social. Do you typically recommend that someone start out by maybe doing like one post a day for 3 different channels? Is it better to, in your eyes, maybe just start with one channel and get a really consistent schedule there? What would you advise to, let's say that listener who is more or less never posted consistently on social for their brand?
Yeah, I think it's very different like person to person and brand to brand. I think it's great to just test. Starting out at the beginning, I think you have to kind of throw content out there and see what works, which personally, I think TikTok is the best place to do it. There's less pressure to like be very polished on there. I think if you can get past the mental block of like just posting anything, which that's like the hardest part, I think, especially for like early stage brand founders, is like you want to put your best foot forward with every piece of content that's out there. But like we were saying, sometimes it's better to just post and see what does well. And it doesn't have to be polished, it can really be testing. So I think that I'm coming from a very direct to consumer, like branding mindset, that TikTok has been so powerful for us. So I would say that's a great place to start. But in general, I would say be consistent and test on like any channel that you think your target audience is most active on. You were saying for you, it might be LinkedIn. For us, that's not the case. But for a lot of brands, like LinkedIn is the place to go and like, test. And like wherever your audience is, try to lean in there and just make sure you set realistic, consistent goals. And another thing that I always talk about is if content isn't hitting, if it's not going viral, that doesn't mean that it's not working. I think the sustainable consistency pays off in the end rather than having one video that goes viral and it feels like really amazing for a little while, but you have to be able to turn that into consistency, like long-term growth. So making sure that you have a system in place where it's like, maybe it's once a week. Maybe you're posting on LinkedIn once a week and that's all you can handle, but make sure you do it every week and eventually it'll scale up. But like starting small, making sure you're hitting where you want to hit. It's okay if it doesn't like go crazy right away, it will eventually. And I like really believe that if you like lean in and you're consistent, it will be successful eventually. You just have to like believe in it, which sounds like really cheesy, but like I think it's important to like believe in your content and like really like care about what you're doing and be consistent. And it's okay if it's getting like literally 10 views at the beginning. Who cares? Just like use it as a learning experience. Like any video that you're putting out there, it's like great for you to learn how to film and edit and produce. Just make it happen.
I love it. And listeners, if you want more inspiration for how to find, because Kelly hit on a lot of great points there, but one of the things that stood out was finding actual topics to talk about. We did an interview with Greg Rowlett over at Grommet back in probably most of the way through season 1. I'm going to guess like season 1, episode 20, maybe episode 30. So definitely check that out from season 1 of the podcast. Greg does a great deep dive for how founders in particular can go about putting out a lot of content, ideation for how to get into that. Kelly, the last big theme I want to ask you about today is probably the hardest question, which is, I'm going to play devil's advocate for a second. Let's say I'm super analytical, not very brand focused. Maybe I'm listening to this and I'm thinking, branding, it sounds really nice, but I'm having a hard time like justifying the cost that would go into it. Talk to me about the ROI side of branding. How can you go about measuring the impact that brand drives? Or let's start out there. How can you measure effectively the impact of branding, or how do you think about the value that branding drives for a business?
Yeah. Yeah, branding, it's definitely more conceptual, I would say, but like we see the impacts every day. And I will say like anecdotally, a lot of our retail expansion, which leads to like really jumping levels in sales numbers, is because our branding really stands out. When you're really differentiating in branding in your category, people notice. And that leads to higher sales and more brand awareness and more opportunities than if you really like didn't invest in brand at all. So from a sales perspective, it might not be like immediate one-to-one, like this element of branding drove this exact sales number. But you look back in 6 months and you realize you're getting so many more sales from social media reach and paid ads. And this retailer reached out to you because they saw your packaging and thought it was so cool and different. And then all of a sudden you're like rolling out nationwide. It is more of a long game, but we definitely see the impact every day. And because we've invested so much time and effort into our branding, we like really use it as a tool, especially content strategy. I think it is a communication tool, branding, even like the colors and the fonts, like we were saying, like it drives whatever you want to say to your audience. So it is worth it to just like make people aware that you exist. You want to be able to communicate that your brand exists and like why it's important and why people should pay attention. And branding is really the way to do that. Without having some sort of branding element, it's just never going to get out there. So in a certain sense, it's almost like the most basic thing that you need to pay attention to is like you need to have a brand in order to like get your mission out there. And then once you like have that, it's like how can we use branding and investing in branding to drive the goals that we want to hit. So for us, it is like driving sales and like growth and retail expansion and things and having maybe like limited budgets as a startup. It's like, what can we have control over? And it's having like really great design and branding and differentiated brand voice and like getting ourselves out there in an organic way that really stands out. And that is driving the difference that maybe like paying millions of dollars in ads might make that difference for other brands that don't invest so much in the branding, if that makes
Amazing.
sense.
Well, Kelly, for listeners that want to buy any Viv products, first, where can they go to find you guys? First, what's your website? Let's start out there.
Yeah, it's vivforyourv.com. So VIVFORYOURV.com.
I love it. Talk to me about social. Where can we go to find you on social?
We are Viv for Your V on all channels, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube. YouTube is like popping off recently. I'm not going to lie. Go find us on YouTube. I love YouTube. And you can shop Viv in store. We're nationwide at Whole Foods. We're in Wegmans, Stop and Shop, Meijer, Central Market. And we have some very exciting announcements coming on November 17th. So go follow our socials. Viv is about to become a lot more accessible to a lot more people. So stay tuned.
Once again, listeners, this is Kelly Donohue, the marketing director over at Viv for Your V. Kelly, thank you for coming on today.
Thank you so much for having me. This is so fun.
Thanks for tuning in to Customer Growth Sessions. If you found it helpful, subscribe and give us a review. It helps us to grow the show. Looking for more SEO guidance on how to grow your business? Contact us at intergrowth.com/estimator or email me directly. You can reach me at pat@intergrowth.com. That's all for today. We'll see you again soon.